Everyday people in a particular neighborhood, including passers-by, noticed that stray dogs always visited the same home. Less beggar curious to find out why, a woman asked the beggar why he always had many stray dogs flocking around him. And his reason shocked the world. Dean was a man in his early who had been through so many challenges and hardships in life. Before he resulted in begging, before Dean became a beggar, he was a hard-working man who did his best to earn money, though. He never completed college. Dean took it upon himself to pursue what he was passionate about. He started a business, and in the beginning it thrived so well, but years down the line, something terrible happened to his business, and he was forced to shut it down. Since Dean was very passionate about what he did, he tried his best to bring his business back to life. But when that couldn't happen, his life took a different direction, and he ended up as a beggar. Unlike other beggars who were always grumpy and with an attitude was different, he was the brighter and active one who always smiled and waved at passers-by. He always said thank you after someone gave him money and knee. Therefore got a face. In fact, tone of the reasons it seemed like Dean had more people giving money and food than they gave other beggars was because each time Dean saw someone who helped him with money in the past, maybe someone who lived in the neighborhood or passers-by that followed that route all the time, Dean would thank them again for helping him. The other day, he always showed gratitude to his helpers and never felt entitled to what he received. But besides Dean being known for always showing appreciation to people for their past favors, she was also known as a beggar who always had dogs around him, stray dogs to be precise, and it all started with one dog. There was a particular dog who was always hanging around Dean, and sometimes people living in the neighborhood and passers-by would see him holding the dog in a blanket like a child while he begged for money. Initially, when people saw Dean with the dog, they believed that the dog must have been his companion in his earlier years, and since dogs were more loyal than humans, she had to follow his father everywhere, but that wasn't true. Dean never knew the dog until he started begging. On the street, it happened that on that very first day that Dean started begging on the street, he was having lunch that day when he spotted a stray dog sniffing around for food out of his love and compassion for the hungry animal. Dean tried to share his food with the dog without scaring it away. At first, the dog, whom Dean later named Scott, was not sure if he could trust Dean, but after days of being fed by Dean, Scott learned to trust Dean more, and they became good friends right from the day their friendship began. Scott ensured he visited Dean every day, and Dean didn't stop by just sharing his food with Scott. He showered his new friend with love and played with him regularly. Most of the time, he would be seen cuddling Scott in a blanket like a baby, which was how people in the neighborhood were able to identify him. Months after Dean and Scott became friends, Dean realized he could still be useful even as a beggar, though he could not help other people in need because of his financial position. He believed he could help animals in need. In the few months of Dean sitting on that particular street as a beggar, he noticed that he would spot at least one new stray dog on the street every week searching for foods. So he decided to start caring for them in their own little ways. So one after the other began to draw the stray dogs to himself in a bid to care for them. He would share his little food with them. And if he didn't have any food, he would buy them food from the little money he made from begging all day in the beginning. Aside from Scott, Dean had 3 other stray dogs under his care, and he loved all of them. Meanwhile, he didn't treat any dog differently or give some more food because of their size. He loved them all the same. The dogs also loved Dean in return. Sometimes they would all sit or sleep beside him during the day while he begged for money. After Dean had 4 dogs under his care, he believed he would end up with just 4 because of his financial constraints. But his passion for other stray dogs didn't let him, so he continued to care for more stray dogs. It even reached a point where other stray dogs in the neighborhood noticed Dean was welcoming, and they began to go to him in their numbers in less than a year of Dean staying on that street. He had more than dogs under his care, and in a way to show their love and support to their father. All the dogs would visit Dean every day. Sometimes they would visit him at different times of the day, and sometimes all the dogs would coincidentally flock around him, wagging their tails for his attention. Apart from wanting to help the stray dogs, Dean was happy with their companionship and had never felt alone, even though he had to give all the dogs small-sized foods so the food could go around. He was glad he could give them a figure to always look up to. He promised himself he would do everything in his power to always care for them and never abandon them, while Dean would innocently play with and feed these stray dogs every time they visited him. He had no idea that people began to notice the number of stray dogs that visited him every day, and they didn't understand why. Also, each time people passed Dean and saw the number of dogs that flocked around him, they would definitely turn their heads and get another look one day. While Dean was feeding and playing with the stray dogs as usual, a woman Nerlates approached him when Dean saw the woman walking toward him. He believed she wanted to give him some money, but she was actually there to ask him some questions. The woman was one of the people who had noticed Dean's relationship with the dogs, and she wanted to know why Heelweish had so many stray dogs visiting him every day, surprised by the woman's question. Dean told her about his past, this love for animals, and how he wanted to make a difference, despite being a homeless beggar, shocked by Dean's story. The lady asked Dean if she could share it on social media. Coink. Identically, she was a social media influencer, and when Dean agreed, she did. Days after the woman shared Dean's story on social media, his story went viral, and it broke everyone's heart regarding Dean's past. Dean had always been passionate about animals from his childhood. Years before, he became a beggar, hound, and animal shelter. In the beginning, his shelter was doing great, but when the government stopped funding it and donations from volunteers were not enough, he was forced to close it down. Fortunately, some of the animals found new homes, but due to limited space, he had to put some animals down when that happened. Dean believed everything was his fault, and he believed he had failed and abandoned the helpless animals who looked up to him as a father. Because of that, he fell into severe depression and alcoholism, and eventually ended upon the street as a beggar. When people saw who Dean didn't let this situation stop him from caring for the animals. She loved people from all over the world, sent financial donations to help Dean get off the street. The support from strangers was so overwhelming that Dean could not believe it was actually happening to him. Thankfully, with the help of the right people and the financial support they received from so many strangers, Dean got off the street, started life. Arshan continued doing what he loved. The most helping animals in need today, Dean continues to help as many animals as possible. He feeds stray dogs daily and takes in as many as she can into his home. His entire house, garden, and even care are filled with dogs in need. It's inspiring and amazing how Dean didn't let this homelessness financial situation take away his deep love for animals. Now, most people in his situation would have easily focused on themselves alone, but Dean did not let this environment or his lack of money or the little food earned from begging stopped him from caring for the animals in need. This shows that the situations of life can't destroy your passion or change who we're on the inside unless we let it. Thanks for watching this story. If you made it this far, please leave a comment with your thoughts on this heartwarming story, and don't forget to like and subscribe so you won't miss any new stories.